It is indeed a pleasure speaking to you from a different part of the world. Ayanda, I know you got a guest there, but
yes.
First, there's some exciting stuff, new developments happening at the conference. Just recap the last couple of days. Just tell us a bit about this new vaccine I understand on the cards.
Well, definitely, yes, Blaine. Yesterday, some exciting developments coming out of the conference in the past 2 days. We're in day 3 today. Yesterday, of course, we reported on scientists saying that they're one step closer to a vaccine. Still so long time to go, of course, or possibly by 2015, we'll then be able to get an update, really, on whether or not we'll be able to get or see a vaccine being made available thereafter. But as you're saying today, Blaine, yes, the focus is on drug resistance. And when we speak of drug resistance, we talk about the ability of parasites to grow in the presence of chemicals or drugs. Some people already saying that it's threatening the sustainability of global efforts to reduce malaria. But I have the pleasure this morning of being joined by Professor Karen Barnes from the University of Cape Town. And Professor Barnes is an expert in clinical pharmacology. Professor Barnes, thank you very much and good morning to you. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Good morning, Ayanda. Thank you for including me.
Professor, just please explain to us drug resistance and why is it such a concern?
So drug resistance happens when the malaria parasite develops new tricks so that it can evade the way that drugs are trying to kill that parasite. And that allows it to survive in the presence of drugs. And so for patients who have malaria, the drugs don't work as well. And obviously our job is to make sure that for people who have malaria, that the treatment that we give them is going to work very well. And this is really threatened by drug resistance emerging in Southeast Asia.
And the threat of it emerging into Africa?
So far, we've got no evidence that it has spread to Africa, which is a great relief given the very high burden of malaria in parts of Africa. But it's really important that we are on our toes and look out very carefully to make sure that we don't see any resistance. At the moment, we have great monitoring programs and we have quite good reassurance that the treatment is highly effective in South Africa. And not only has it contributed to this high cure rate that we see in our patients, but we also know that it's contributed to a dramatic reduction in the number of malaria cases seen in South Africa, so that we're now moving towards talking about malaria elimination rather than just controlling this disease. So far, we've been using these drugs with great success, no evidence of a problem, but we now need to work really hard to make sure that we would detect any resistance as it emerges so that we can do something about it.
And on the issue of the drugs, Professor, what are steps being done to prolong the effects of the existing drugs?
So part of what we're doing at the moment is when we're monitoring for drug resistance, it gets harder and harder when we have fewer and fewer malaria cases. So in a way, the great success that we've had in South Africa to reduce the malaria numbers is making our job a little bit harder. So what we're doing is we work with global partnerships like the Worldwide Anti-Malarial Resistance Network so that scientists from all over the world can come together to develop the best tools to make sure that we pick up resistance quickly and accurately, and that we can translate the data that we collect into useful information that can be used to contain resistance and hopefully also prevent resistance from happening.
Currently, the drugs that are available seem to be working very well, but are scientists looking at developing new drugs?
It's absolutely critical to develop new drugs because the malaria parasite will always develop resistance over time. And so we've got some really exciting developments happening with things like the compound that was developed at the University of Cape Town by Kaylee Shabali, which you heard about during this conference. And so what we're doing in our group is we're setting ourselves up right now to be able to do the very first clinical trials in human patients on that compound next year. And it's really important that we do as much of that clinical trial drug development in Africa so that we can have treatments that are suitable for our African populations.
Professor Barnes, thank you very much for your time. Well, as you heard it, Blaine, a lot of work that is being done by scientists. The conference continues today. It's day 3. We are expecting the South African team today. Possibly, we haven't heard yet confirmation yet whether or not the Minister of Health, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, he is supposed to be coming through to the conference later this afternoon.
I'm sure you'll keep us up to date with all the latest from the International Convention Centre. One of the hardest working journalists in KwaZulu-Natal, Ayanda Mhlongo. Thank you very much indeed for your time.